Hello and welcome to another segment of He Calls Me Deborah, Beaming a Light of Hope. We've been talking about Dr. John Townsend's book, how to handle the button pushers in your life, dealing with the difficult people. And we've already recognized that the difficult people in our lives are our button pushers, are people who are important to us. And so we've been discussing the portion of his book which suggests strategies that have been proven to work. And we call these resources. And our last segment was on the resource number 1, which was God. And so here we pick up today on resource number 2, which is your life. You and your life are both agents for change with your button pusher. You can influence and accomplish much by the way you live and the way that you operate in the world, and actually the relationship that you have with your person or your button pusher. Both of these have power that you may not even be aware of. Townsend explains that it's a matter of light and darkness, that the more your own life is exposed fully to love, truth, and the growth process, the more you become light. You're going to see movement in one direction or another. People in darkness, those who are in hiding, those things that your button pusher is experiencing, they react to the light and they can't remain neutral for long. So the more that you become light, the more your person is going to be forced to change positions one way or another. John 1:5 in the NIV translation tells us, "The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it." There will be some good news or some bad news, but like Townsend says, it's better to know the bad news and help the person experience the consequences than to pretend that she's something she's not. What Townsend actually calls a hopeless case. Love has an irresistible pull. The good news is that even if your person is uncomfortable with love, honesty, and growth, they may be undeniably drawn to it. They'll begin to change and become a person of light themselves. The flip side of this, of course, may be the bad news. Sensing that many things have to change, they may become antagonistic toward the light, moving against it or away from it. Townsend believes, however, that moving away from the light can actually become a commitment that helps your person define their true character and motives. And if I may add, like it or not, this is something that we all need to do from time to time, a self-examination. Think about it. What have you been willing to come to terms with about yourself lately? So we always have to be open to the fact that we have character flaws that we need to examine. We need to examine our own motives for doing things as we wait for the light to again draw those people that are more difficult to the light and to examining their true character and motives. Your life is like an oven of growth. For a difficult person, when you turn up the heat by being a good and growing person, your difficult person can't help but feel the heat. So what do you gain by allowing them to feel this heat? Well, for one thing, you reclaim your happiness. Ask yourself this question: is it possible that I have actually handled the problem in such a way, the problem of my own happiness, that I've given that over to my button pusher? Our happiness, our growth, and our well-being should be up to us, God, and the spiritual community in which we surround ourselves, not one person, and not particularly one person who makes our lives difficult. Romans 14:12 says, "So then, each of us will give an account of himself to God." Townsend advises that we need to stay in charge of our own quest for a good and meaningful life. Don't give it away. But what about closure? Sometimes others choose to leave us without the closure we need. For example, A friend abruptly ends a relationship with us without any explanation. An example that he gives in the book is of a woman named Amanda. Amanda had a conflict with her best friend Pam. Yet because she thought they had a strong relationship, she was surprised when Pam stopped calling and shut down all connection, day in and day out. Amanda couldn't get her friend out of her mind. And this absence of closure for Amanda left her feeling guilty and confused. Amanda became obsessive about the problem, leaving messages and emails for Pam and talking to mutual friends about her. Have you ever found yourself in a situation like this? I have. I had a very close and dear friend that we lived in different cities, and so when we couldn't visit personally, we would talk on the phone. And she was always having a lot of difficulty with one child or the other. She had two teenagers in the home, 3 children total. And my friend would call, and she would always share the difficulties that she was having. And one day, without really realizing, I guess, the tone in which I said it, because I was really speaking of myself as well, but I made the comment, isn't it funny how it's so easy for us to seek out a friend to talk about our problems together, but yet, do we really take the time to pray about these things? Well, I can tell you it's very difficult when you feel that you've lost a friend and you don't have closure, you don't have the explanation for what happened, but it really begins to weigh on you because you think back and you can understand and recognize what was said and realize that that may very well have been the affront that caused that person to turn from your friendship. But at the same time, without any conversation, without any resolution, you're left without closure. And it's a sad thing to lose a friend like that and not be able to work through the issue and repair the friendship. Can you relate? What did you do in your situation? Townsend offers this advice for situations lacking closure. Develop the ability to multitask in the relational world. Do these 2 things at once. Deal effectively and redemptively with your difficult person, and navigate a good and fulfilling life no matter how the person is responding or not responding, because you need this freedom. Freedom to make to make sense of things and to let it go. Admittedly, we need some kind of answer from the other person in a conflict. But even with loose ends, the absence of closure, you need to let it go and move on. He suggests making the lack of closure just another aspect of your grief. So why do we give away ownership of our lives anyway? This image comes to mind for me when I hear that phrase, a lien release for a car, or a transfer of deed to a property, paying it off, and then simply giving it away to someone else. Here you go. Here's the lien release. Here's the transfer of deed. Townsend suggests 3 reasons why we do this when we turn control of our lives over, ownership, to someone else, our button pusher, the difficult person in our life. He suggests that we may have a lack of awareness, there may be some dependency, or some fear of life. So let's look at each of these more closely. Lack of awareness. The center of attention for our lives can shift gradually without our even being aware of it. And a lack of ownership for the behavior of your difficult person may push you to begin looking for solutions. And before you know it, you're working harder and harder, giving up more and more territory in your life, and then you cross a line. You get obsessed. They're all you talk about. So where's the solution? You may ask, where's the solution? Well, Townsend advises you to plug into people who will give you warmth and empathy, and who will also let you know they want a more robust relationship with you than problem solving. So by their actions, their tone, and what they say to you, they let you know that they want to give you warmth and empathy, but at the same time, they know where to draw the line and to push you to resolve the issue and let it go. Reason number 2 may be dependency. Who is in charge of your happiness anyway? We want good things from our difficult person, things like love, respect, tenderness, responsibility, and affirmation. Wanting something can be good because it holds people together and helps them meet one another's needs. This isn't the same, though, as Townsend points out, as putting a major part of your life on hold, waiting for the cooperation of another person so that your life will be better. If the difficult person isn't changing, it's a lose-lose for you. And what you want to strive for is a win-win. Think a minute about this phrase. How can I miss you if you won't go away? While we all need affirmation, empathy, structure, and reality, it isn't wise to look to your button pusher to provide these things for you, and there are 2 reasons for that. Townsend says, first, you may seem clingy and intruding to them. There has to be specific space for the other person to feel longing. And second, it gives your button pusher the space they need to miss you. When someone is dependent on you, it can allow you not to deal with your own issues or darkness, according to Townsend. Get dependent on water from good wells instead. I love this analogy, water from good wells. So what does this mean? It means that to let your button pusher deal with whatever it is they need to deal with, whether it's brokenness, selfishness, dependency, or a lack of structure. And finally, the 3rd reason that we may give ownership of our lives to someone else is fear of life. Prepare to be the best possible redemptive agent for your person and for the relationship the 2 of you have. And how do you do that? Well, ask yourself a difficult question. Have you or are you allowing your life to be defined by this crisis? Townsend uses the idea of being on call 24/7, where your entire schedule is dictated by crisis after crisis. To his idea, I'd add, it's like you're the helpline. You're the 911 on your button pusher's phone on auto dial, redial. Fear is the underlying driver here. So what are you afraid of? Well, Townsend suggests a few reasons to consider. 1, you may be afraid of going out to find new relationships, or you may be avoiding the very feelings that you need to feel. Or 3rd, you may be restructuring your life and schedule so that you're less involved with your button pusher. The idea of doing that may be scary. You have talents, you have passions and interests, and these are given to you by God, and He desires that you invest them wisely. Matthew 25:14 through 30, the NIV translation, is the parable that Jesus told about the workers who received 5 talents, 2 talents, and 1 talent to invest. One hid his in the ground because he was afraid, and the master was displeased and even called his worker wicked. Give yourself the time and space you need to find out what your talents, passions, and interests are. Deal with fear of failure, new scenarios, or change itself. Deal with those things. Identify your talents, your passions, and interests, and spend time investing in those things. Face your fears and become a new person instead of waiting for your button pusher to change before you have a life. Your growth makes a difference for both of you. A growing person of high ownership yourself, be that person, because a growing person is an influence for growth. Keep in mind that it is a lack of ownership that qualifies your button pusher to be just that, your button pusher. And as you take proper responsibility for your life, you can shift the nature of your relationship with your button pusher toward growth. Another way to reclaim your happiness is to model what you are requesting. It can be quite powerful for your button pusher to see you as an example of how love, relationships, responsibility, and freedom all work together for a good result. Swimming upstream against the currents of the very strong laws and realities that God designed for our own happiness can't be making your button pusher happy. Unless, of course, a lot of other people are rescuing them. Don't be one of those people. Don't be a rescuer. Instead, Townsend offers some practical ideas for you to help apply your life and growth as a resource to effect positive change. First, put down the one-up role. Remember that you're also broken and unfinished in some way. You need God's grace and help, and other people's health too. Be humble. Just because you found God doesn't mean that you are to pridefully compare yourself to others or feel like you're there to help them, like you have all the answers they need. We all need answers. And next, model definition. A defined person isn't easily thrown off balance. Don't be the only one doing all the reacting, living on the defensive, trying to comfort dependency, and then warding off anger. Townsend reminds readers that when you do these things, your button pusher is in control, not you. So stop trying to control dependency. Stop trying to ward off anger. Model definition. Be clear, and don't be easily thrown off balance. And so, what if your button pusher still doesn't change? You've done all these things. They still don't change. Well, people are free, and there are no guarantees that your life will change them. You can desire someone's growth, but not depend on it. Instead, you can desire it from a position of being loved, strengthened, supported, and free from the craziness of someone else, your button pusher, or their life. Townsend suggests that we keep investing in life and good things and continue to use your modeling definition to be a beacon of hope. Join us next time as we explore other resources we have to help us affect positive change and growth in our button pushers' life. Things like safe and sane relationships and your stance, which is a powerful one. So join us next time. Unless we're raptured, thanks for joining.